Fans are shocked as the reality TV power couple, known for their on-screen glitz and seemingly ideal family life, suddenly find themselves at the center of an explosive scandal that could have led to such a violent outburst. Sources close to the couple are whispering about deep-rooted tensions and infidelity rumors. In a shocking turn of events that sent shockwaves through social media, Yandy Smith-Harris allegedly slapped her husband Mendeecees Harris in a moment of rage that no one saw coming, and an act of betrayal that has completely destroyed their relationship. But just when it seemed like things couldn't get any worse, an unexpected attack on Yandy has left the whole family in disarray. The drama intensifies even more, and Yandy decides to take matters into her own hands by bringing a shocking lawsuit against Mendeecees, alleging emotional and physical distress. The couple's picture-perfect image has been destroyed, and fans are left wondering what actually happened. The tension in the Harris household was evident from the outside. Everything appeared picture-perfect. Yandy Smith-Harris and Mendeecees Harris have built an empire together, and their love story was being televised nationally for millions of viewers. Stay tuned as we unravel the mystery of this explosive family feud, its shocking aftermath, and its shocking twist that has left everyone wondering if this is the end of Yandy and Mendeecees' reign as reality TV's golden coupon couple. What the cameras failed to capture was the storm that was building behind closed doors, a storm from which neither fame nor wealth could shield them. It all began with a simple argument, at least that's how Yandy put it, about something insignificant Mendeecees believed. He had no idea that this argument would turn into a full-fledged altercation that would ultimately result in an act of aggression that would destroy their relationship. Ironship on the night of the incident was typical. Yandy had just gotten home from a long day of photo shoots and business meetings, and the men in Mendeecees had been busy taking care of the kids at home. Despite their hectic schedules, they always made time for each other, or at least they tried to, but that night felt different. The tension in the air was heavy, as if they were both trading carefully. It began small, and small Anne had been getting frustrated. Napped, throwing her purse onto the couch. Her tone was sharp, laced with annoyance that had been building for weeks. She felt that MD was growing more emotionally and physically distant, and she had noticed that he had been acting more distracted by his phone lately, spending less time in their conversations. It was driving her crazy. "I'm just tired, Mendeecees, you're not even listening to me anymore." Through his phone, he hardly looked up, which only made Yandy more angry. "What now, Yandy? Are you just going to blow up over nothing?" Mendeecees replied in a flat voice, displaying no concern. Yandy's frustration increased, and she was unable to contain herself any longer. "It's always nothing, isn't it? That's white. That thing, but I can feel it, you're putting away from me." MC looked up, his eyes flickering with annoyance. "I'm not pulling away, I'm just busy," Yandy said, not convinced. "Convinced? Me that Mendeecees that. You're too busy for your own wife, and now you have time for everyone but me, and I'm supposed to just sit here and take it." The argument quickly got out of hand, and every accusation Yandy made only seemed to aggravate Mendeecees, who got up and paced the room while putting his hands through his hair in an attempt to remain composed. "You don't get it, do you? I'm working hard to support this family, and I'm doing everything I can. For a Moken." Mendeecees' expression softened as she said, "You think I don't appreciate that I'm not talking about money, Mendeecees? Money men, talking about you being present. I need you here with me emotionally, mentally, and physically, not just for the kids, but for us." Then something changed, and he felt the familiar sting of defensiveness creep in. His irritation turned to anger. "What's wrong with you? Are you a coup? Gara something?" Yandy shook her head and started crying. She was crying, ailing with this for months, and it was wearing her down. She was tired of holding everything together and felt like she was always fighting for approval and attention. "No, I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just telling you how I feel." Mendeecees didn't seem to hear her well. "If you're so unhappy, perhaps you should have said something sooner." He snapped, rising. "But don't come at me like I'm the problem here." Yandy patience had. Then, thing had. A violent turn without warning. Yandy raised her hand and slapped Mendeecees across the face, though something inside of her head snapped. The room fell silent, the weight of what had just happened hanging in the air, and she tried to steady herself by taking a deep breath, but her emotions were already bubbling over. Her next words came out sharper than she intended. "You're malintended, acting, always blaming me, always making me feel like I'm crazy for feeling this way," he asked in a way, dangerously calm voice. "Did you just hit me?" BC stood frozen, her eyes wide, in shock. The sting of the slap seemed to reverberate throughout the room, and for a moment, neither of them knew how to respond. Yandy stood there, her heart thumping in her chest. She had never done this before, and she had never raised her hand to him, not even in anger. But in that moment, it felt like the only way to convey how hurt and betrayed she felt. Her emotions were feltulating, and she couldn't handle it. "I just don't know it. To do anymore, you're shutting anymore," said Yandy, her voice shaking as tears streamed down her cheeks. The silence between them was deafening. Mendeecees, who deafening anything for a moment as he tried to process what had just happened. His mind was racing, and he couldn't quite comprehend that his wife had slapped him. It felt like a violation that would change the dynamics of their relationship forever. Relationship forever. "Leave," this man finally said, his story shaky but full of hurt. "I never thought you'd do something like this." Yandy didn't know what else to do, so she wiped away her tears, feeling the weight of her actions and regretting them, but she couldn't help but feel angry. She whispered, "You've been so distant, so cold. I don't if distantness cold do anymore." MC's jaw clenched. "This just about tonight, is it?" She didn't tonight, it. Because the truth was already in the open, and they both knew it. Open problems they had been avoiding for months had finally come to a head. The slap was just the start of a series of events that neither of them had anticipated, and the emotional outburst was quick and intense. What followed was a string of disagreements, accusations, and miscommunications that only served to widen the gap between them. The men in DC were Statham, shocked from the slap, and weren't going to let it go unpunished, so he started withdrawing even more towards himself and avoiding Yandy at all costs. Every interaction seemed colder than the last, and Yandy's emotional toll was unbearable. She had already been feeling neglected, and now that the slap was hanging over their relationship, it seemed like distant memories. It seemed like the memory was about to fall apart, and as the days went by, the tension in their home only got worse. Then something even more startling occurred. MC's behavior started to change. He became more reclusive and secretive, and rumors that he had been seeing someone else started to circulate. The whisper quickly spread like wild whisper, and soon fans were left wondering if the slap was just the beginning. The slap was a line beginning, a moment that neither of them could erase. It was no longer just an argument. It was a full-blown crisis, and the aftermath was already starting to fall apart as news outlets learned of the increasingly tense situation. What had started as a quiet evening of frustration had turned into something much more public and real in the days that followed the incident. The former lively coincident, that filled formerly air home, now felt distant, replaced by a chilling silence that weighs heavily on everyone. Yandy tried to reach out to him to apologize for her moment of anger, but each time she did, she hit a brick wall. The man's silence was suffocating. He wasn't talking to Yandy. He wasn't returning calls from close friends or family, and he locked himself in his study, spending hours on his phone. The media, always looking at the phone, from drama, quickly picked up on the story, and social media exploded with rumors and unverified reports. Everyone had their own theories, and some said it was a sign that their marriage was over. How could Yandy, his partner who had been by his side through thick and thin, slap him? It felt more than just physical. It was a betrayal of trust. Their once unbreakable bond now seemed fragile, teetering on the edge of something unfixable. Claimed that it was an unfixable. Understanding and fans who had previously supported the couple were now split. Many sympathized with Yandy, understanding her frustration, while others thought that men in DC had been wrong. However, Everyone agreed that their relationship would never be the same again as the days turned into weeks, and Yandy's emotional toll became unbearable. She attempted to put on a brave front for their kids, but her pain was visible on her face. After yet another attempt to speak face, Mendeecees failed, Yandy decided to take matters into her own hands and reached out to a lawyer. The first step was obvious. She needed to protect herself and make sure she was ready for whatever came next. Her friends also noticed the haunting vulnerability that had replaced her normally confident demeanor. They had never seen Yandy like this before, broken, lost, and unsure of what came next. Wasn't about retaliating against us next. It was about protecting her future, her safety, and their children's future. The slap, which had once represented Amber, now represented something much more serious. Her lawyer, a seasoned professional who had witnessed it all, quickly assessed the situation and advised Yandy that she shouldn't let it go unchecked because it was more than just a marital argument, and that if she didn't take action, it could turn into something much worse. The news of Yandy's lawsuit sent showers through the media, and the tabloid headlines screamed that she had no choice but to file a case against him, citing emotional and physical distress. She hadn't made this decision lightly, and she never imagined that she would have to involve the law in her personal life, but the emotional distance between them had grown so great, and Mendeecees' behavior was becoming more unpredictable that she had no choice. The lawsuit was shocking, but it wasn't just about the legalities. It was about everything that had led to this point, including the betrayal, the slap, and the devastating foul. As the news spread, fans' reactions were quick and emotional, and some of them were supportive of Yandy. The couple had been the epitome of relationship goals for years, and now everything was falling apart in front of their eyes. However, others were quick to defend Mendeecees, dimming Yandy for overreacting and questioning the veracity of her claims. They acknowledged that her actions were motivated by deep pain and pointed out that she had always been a strong and supportive partner to Mendeecees. The online community turned into a battlefield, with both sides fervently defending their version of events within the Harris family. In an emotional interview with the Gossip family, the mother of Hyman, who had always been an outspoken figure in her son's life, was devastated by the turn of events. She had witnessed her son go through a lot, and now that she was witnessing his marriage fall apart, she couldn't help but blame Yandy for taking things too far. "That's my son, he's been through enough," she said, adding Yandy knows better. Meanwhile, Yandy's own family came together to support her. Her mother, in particular, was furious at Noah, and should ever have to go through this. She told the press that Yandy did what she had to do to protect herself, and I'm proud of her for standing up for what's right. However, the family dynamics weren't the only things that were in turmoil. M's friends were also divided. Some saw him as the victim, a man who had been wrongfully accused and who had suffered emotionally as a result of his wife's actions. In the midst of all the drama, it became evictions. He was no longer the man he used to be because of his actions and the fallout from the slap. He had become defensive, angry, and bitter, and it was evident that the marriage he once cherished was now hanging by a thread. They supported Yandy's decision to pursue legal action, believing that he had taken his frustrations out on her in an unacceptable manner. Was only one piece of the puzzle. There were still many questions that needed to be answered, including whether Is would ever apologize, whether their marriage could be saved, and most importantly, how this would affect their children. As the lawsuit progressed, it became evident that this would not be a simple battle, with no obvious winners in sight, only the agonizing realization that their lives had been permanently altered. Every day brought new developments, twists, and new challenges. Yandy was now navigating a world where not new was certain, where the family she had built and the love she had fought for seemed to be slipping away from her. However, amidst the chaos, Yandy remained hopeful that one day she would find peace, whether that peace came from movie one or from mending her marriage. What she knew for sure wasn't she wasn't going down without a fight, and as the level battle continued, as the day went on, The tension between Yandy and Mendeecees grew, and the public scrutiny of their every action became intolerable. Her lawsuit was just the beginning of the circus in the public eye, where every phone call, social media post, and on-camera appearance was scrutinized, criticized, and dissected. Fans were desperate for answers, but the more they pushed, the more elusive the truth seemed to become. Yandy saw the lawsuit as more than just a legal action. It became a symbol of her struggle for independence, respect, and dignity. She wasn't only protecting herself from the slap, it was also a result of years of emotional turmoil that had developed between them during their marriage. Yandy had given so much for Mendeecees. She had stood by him during his legal battles, supported him through his highs and lows, and made innumerable personal sacrifices to keep their family together. But this betrayal, the slap every time she questioned her choices, the thought of her apron would bring her back, and she couldn't risk upsetting their family, especially when it seemed like they were already on the verge of disintegration. The silence and emotional abandonment had broken everything, and Yandy knew it was time to stop defending a marriage that no longer felt real. Her eyes were opening to the possibility that perhaps she had been holding on to something that wasn't meant to last. Meanwhile, NY's life had spiraled into the lawsuit, though not wholly unexpected, felt like a betrayal and a slap in the face that only deepened the chasm between them. In his mind, Yandy had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. The shock of the slap had sent him into a defensive mode that was both destructive and self-serving. Though the pain and humiliation of it all were consuming him, he wasn't willing to back down with the lawsuit. Mendeecees was determined to fight back despite his damaged lawsuit. The reputation. His legal team was already getting ready for a protracted battle, and he wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for the life he had built, the family he loved, and the public image he had carefully traded over the years. He wasn't about to let Yandy destroy everything with a lawsuit, and as the legal proceedings progressed, new revelations surfaced, adding fuel to the fire. Everybody had an opinion and wanted their voice heard as the fire. Ends and family were scrutinized for seeking juicy details. It seemed like there was a new rumor or accusation every day. Some claimed that Yandy had been too controlling and had driven Mendeecees to the edge, while others said that Mendeecees had been unfair and the deceased slap was the result of years of emotional neglect. The accusations swirled, and the drama got worse with each new piece of gossip. As weeks turned into months, the media frenzy surrounding the situation made it clear that Yandy was becoming more resolute in her decision to fight back, and the emotional toll was beginning to show that she wasn't the same woman who had entered the marriage years ago. The woman who had once believed in love, loyalty, and partnership now found herself questioning everything, including whether love was truly enough to overcome the kind of betrayal she had experienced, whether there was a future for her ends, and whether it was time to leave for good. Yandy wanted to protect her kids from the drama, but it seemed good because the family was being torn apart in front of millions of people, and there was no way to escape the public scrutiny. On the other hand, Star was struggling with the fallout from the situation his reputation was in, and the lawsuit reached a fever pitch. Every court motion was examined. Every piece of information was shared on social media, and fans couldn't get enough for Yandy. He was accustomed to being in charge and having the last word about Yandy. He was in a tight spot. He didn't know how to mend what had been damaged. The guilt he felt was oppressive, but his pride prevented him from acknowledging it, so he threw himself into this work in the hopes that he could hide the pain and humiliation in his career. However, despite his best efforts to divert his attention, the reality of his broken marriage continued to haunt him as every step forward seemed to be followed by 2 steps back as months went and Yandy and I were like 2 ships passing in the night, each too consumed by their own pain and pride to reach out to the other. Their marriage, which had been full of promise, was now a shell of what it had been, torn apart by the slap, lawsuit, and accusations. Despite the fact that the damage had already been done, neither of them was prepared to let go entirely. In a final attempt to regain control of the narrative, Yandy took to social media to address the divided SAA fans who had previously been loyal to both Mendeecees and Yandy. While some hoped for a reconciliation, believing that true love could overcome even the most painful betrayals, others felt that the marriage was beyond saving and that it was time for both Mendeecees and Yandy to move on. She wrote, "I never wanted it to come to this," in her emotionally raw and Union aired post. But sometimes you have to protect yourself even if it means walking away from something you thought was worth fighting for. I've given everything to my family and my marriage, but I can't keep sacrificing myself for something that's not healthy. This isn't easy, but it's time for me to heal. The post went viral and her fans showered her with support, bravery, and strength, but it also caused a wave of backlash, with some people supporting her for sharing their private issues in public. However, Yandy didn't care anymore. She had made her decision, and now it was time to accept it. Mendeecees, on the other hand, stayed silent, not responding to Yandy's public message, not addressing the media, and not commenting on the lawsuit. His silence was growing, and it was obvious that he wasn't prepared to face the truth. Whether it was about his pride or one thing was certain though, the drama was far from over. The family was left tired. The public was still watching, and both Yandy and I were left to navigate the wreckage of our lives as the legal battle continued. The lawsuit was far from over, and the emotional scars were still fresh. What would happen next? Would they ever reconcile, or was this the last chapter of their once perfect marriage? Only time would tell. The drama between Yandy and Mendeecees is far from over, and with every turn, fans tell, wondering what will happen next. What do you think about Yandy's decision to take legal action against Mendeecees? Do you think their marriage can be saved, or is this the end for them? Please share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video if you want to stay up to date on this shocking story. You don't want to miss any more exclusive updates or the most recent celebrity story. To overlook Belle's upcoming next hit symbol to let you know first when we controversy. Astounding upgrade.